Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the Prime Minister says Scotland can have a bright future after Brexit, but Nicola Sturgeon insists that leaving the EU will be hugely damaging.
Brexit provides us with opportunities. I want to see us coming together.
The interests of not just Scotland but the whole UK are going to be deeply damaged, and I think future generations will never ever forgive them for it.
With 1 year to go, we have more analysis on the impact of Brexit.
What does Brexit mean for business? We'll have a different perspective live from Vienna as we speak to people who make their living from importing Scottish goods.
Also tonight, animal charities call for action after a video emerges of mountain hares being culled in the Cairngorms.
Porridge, of course.
And the secret to a long life, according to Scotland's oldest man, as he celebrates his 110th birthday. Good evening. With 1 year to go, the Prime Minister has insisted that Scotland can have a bright future after Brexit, and she dismissed accusations of a power grab and the row over EU powers in devolved areas like farming and fishing. But at Holyrood, the First Minister said Brexit would be hugely damaging and the Tories would never be forgiven. This from our political editor, Brian Taylor.
Cutting the cloth to suit.
I wouldn't be able to do that. When I cut it way.
Visiting a textile firm in Ayr, the Prime Minister insists that Scotland can adapt successfully to life after Brexit within the Union.
Brexit provides us with opportunities. I want to see us coming together, the four nations across the United Kingdom.
On EU powers in devolved areas like farming, she said it was sensible to retain some powers in London initially to maintain a common UK market.
There is no power grab. We are not taking back any of the powers that are currently devolved to the Scottish Government. Indeed, the Scottish Government will be receiving more powers.
Nicola Sturgeon dissents sharply. She backs common UK standards on issues like food labelling, but wants those agreed, not imposed. A year out, she said people had yet to receive answers to key questions.
We have a deeply divided Tory party that are putting their ideological interests ahead of the interests of the country, and for as long as that remains the case, then the interests of not just Scotland but the whole UK are going to be deeply damaged, and that will be the Tory legacy to Scotland and to the rest of the UK, and I think future generations will never ever forgive them for it.
Patrick Harvie questioned the legitimacy of the Brexit referendum and posed a double challenge to the First Minister.
Will the First Minister commit not only to continuing to oppose the Brexit process in principle, but also, if this is done to us and we are dragged out of Europe, to immediately campaign to get back in as a full member state?
First Minister.
Nicola Sturgeon didn't answer in those terms, but she did condemn Brexit and she did envisage Scotland as a proud European nation.
Shall we grab a seat?
In an Edinburgh restaurant, Scottish ministers hear concerns about Brexit voiced by individuals. They feature in a study published today. Ana Rodriguez was born in Madrid, but has lived here for 35 years.
It's beginning to feel a bit uncomfortable. And I have already been told by somebody to go back to my own country. Somebody I was having an argument with, and it's never happened in 35 years I've been in this country.
At Holyrood, Willie Rennie offers an answer: hold another referendum on the final deal and abandon Brexit.
I think we should stop this madness before we go any further. That's why I'll be making the case that we've got an escape chute. We can decide to turn back. We should put it in the hands of the British people. If they want to say no to the deal that's forthcoming from Theresa May, they should have the right to.
Labour says it would be wrong to reverse the UK's democratic decision, but they too see change ahead.
I actually think that there is a strong possibility, given the state of negotiations at the moment, that that deal will be voted down by Parliament, not just by the Labour Party but by other parties, which in turn could form a constitutional crisis which will lead to a general election.
Is Brexit the dominant daily topic in staff canteens across Scotland? Maybe not. But do the details matter to people everywhere? Undoubtedly, yes. Brian Taylor, Reporting Scotland.
When we leave the EU, some things will stay much the same, at least for a couple of years. During the so-called Brexit implementation period, UK citizens will still be able to move to EU countries to live and work and vice versa. But longer term, the rules will depend on whatever immigration policy the UK adopts. Some people are trying to avoid potential restrictions by applying for second passports in EU countries, as our political correspondent Glenn Campbell has been finding out.
We're hurtling towards departure from the EU, and it's not yet clear how Brexit will affect our ability to travel, to live, work or study in any EU country. Martin McGrath doesn't want to rely on UK papers. He's applying for a second passport.
So what do you have to do to get this passport?
Well, the first thing is we need a birth certificate from my grandmother.
As his granny was born in Ireland, he should qualify for Irish citizenship and the EU rights that come with that.
I will have freedom of travel throughout my adult life, no matter what happens. But I will be an EU citizen, and I will have an EU passport no matter what happens in the negotiations.
So it's like an insurance policy?
Basically, yeah.
They teach 14 different languages at the centre in Glasgow, but the boss is worried Brexit will make it harder to find staff.
We have had a huge decline in applications for positions, and I think now with the uncertainty, they might just choose to go elsewhere, because in Europe they can go anywhere.
Having been born in Germany, Michelle is now seeking German citizenship for herself and her children, Leon and Ruby.
I hope they remain as free as they can be, that they can move and they can choose where to live, where to work, where to be further educated, who to fall in love with, and not be trapped on an island that has decided to be on its own.
I spent most of my life in Canada.
But Antoni Kozlowski is half Polish. He was born in Scotland and decided to retire here.
To be closer to my family in Poland, and sort of 3 years after we came back, they pulled this Brexit stunt on us.
Antoni's determined to get a Polish passport.
Why is it so important to you?
So that I can feel solidarity with the concept of a peaceful Europe. But more important, on a selfish basis, just so that I have the freedom to go and visit my family when I feel like it, and in a way that is convenient to me.
Of course, the UK and EU could agree to retain visa-free travel for visitors, and the final Brexit deal from 2020 could prove more flexible than some fear.
But if you want to live, work or study in an EU country, then you can't assume that your right to do so will be automatic as it is now. And that's why some are applying for second passports to hold on to their rights as EU citizens. Glenn Campbell reporting Scotland, Glasgow Airport.
Brexit will fundamentally change how Scotland does business with the rest of Europe and the world. We've been following the progress of Scottish gin as it's made and exported to the EU. Our political correspondent Andrew Kerr has traced the route to its final destination, and he's in the capital of Austria tonight. Andrew.
Sally, good evening from Vienna. We started with the gin distillation process in Edinburgh. It gets taken down to Dover, shipped across to Calais and ends up here in Austria. So we've been speaking to importers, sellers and expats to find out how they're facing up to Brexit with 1 year to go. Tourists love the grace and grandeur of Vienna. The locals love Scottish spirits. The gin we saw being made in Edinburgh now sits on the importer shelf after an easy journey through the EU.
It means we buy a product as if it was produced in Salzburg. It's very easy, transport-wise, documentation-wise.
Thomas sells on to this local shop. Whisky and Scottish gin line the shelves. Brexit may disturb the smooth flow of spirits from Scotland.
Switzerland is not in the European Union, so we import not so often. We're looking at first in other countries to get the product.
To avoid disruption, the Scottish Government argues the UK should remain in the single market and the customs union after Brexit. Labour wants a new and comprehensive customs union. The UK Government says they're leaving the single market and the customs union, aiming now for an ambitious free trade agreement. As night falls, time to enjoy the Scottish products at a top Viennese hotel. One British expat agrees with the UK Government view. He's got no love for the EU.
I think there are too many layers, it costs too much. I think there's a ton of corruption. And I think the average man in the street doesn't feel as if he's voted for these people.
Across town, in a very different venue, a very different view.
It's an absolute disaster. It's caused a lot of insecurity. People don't know where they are. People don't know what to, or how to plan.
This pop-up bar sells Scottish gin. The award-winning mixologist is worried about Brexit, but thinks it will be made to work.
The whole world, the whole bar industry relies on Scottish produce, and we actually don't want to stop working with those beautiful products, so we need them.
This British-built Ferris wheel has dominated the Viennese skyline for more than 120 years. Who knows how the Brexit wheel of fortune might spin for Scottish exporters and European importers. Andrew Kerr, reporting Scotland, Vienna.
Well, I'm joined now by our political editor, Brian Taylor, in Edinburgh, and Nick Eardley, our Westminster correspondent. Brian, coming to you first on the knotty issue of devolved powers, what prospect is there of agreement between Edinburgh and London on these?
Sally, there is the prospect of an agreement, but frankly, they didn't sound very chummy today. You had a virulent attack from the First Minister on the Tories and a vigorous defence from the Prime Minister on the subject of those powers. You've got to understand what's going on here. It's not like normal negotiations where you kind of split the difference and do a deal. The Scottish Government, Nicola Sturgeon, is saying this is about a point of principle. It is about the whole basis on which devolution is maintained. The Prime Minister says yes, but she cannot be confident. She cannot leave it to chance to allow these UK frameworks in matters like fishing and farming and food labelling to be established. Do I think there's still the possibility of a deal? Yes, I do, and for this reason, that it's particularly a point that's pressing upon the UK government. They are already facing internal dissent and external conflict over Brexit. They have those very difficult negotiations in Brussels to come. They don't, frankly, need another fight with Scotland, but right now that's what they've got.
And Nick Eardley, still an awful lot of questions facing Theresa May.
Yeah, Sally, sometimes the Brexit debate down here can seem relentless, but I suspect its intensity is just going to continue because there are still big questions requiring big answers. Is the UK government happy with where it's got so far? Yes, we heard optimism from Theresa May today, but there are still huge issues to solve. Things like the Irish border, our future immigration system, the future long-term trading arrangements with Europe. There are still big battles to come in the Parliament behind me, not least in the autumn, when MPs expect to be able to debate and vote on a long-term trading deal. Big battles to come in Europe before then too. And let's not forget that nothing is set in stone yet. To use that well-worn phrase, nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. The Prime Minister said to the BBC tonight that the country will change as a result of Brexit. But quite what those changes mean, what the country is going to look like afterwards, we'll keep you posted.
Nick Eardley in Westminster and Brian Taylor there in Edinburgh. Thank you very much. The First Minister says she's concerned and angry after footage obtained by BBC Scotland showed mountain hare culling in the Cairngorms area. The video, filmed without the knowledge of those involved, was passed to the BBC by animal charities. Moorland representatives say they're concerned that the footage gives an incorrect impression about mountain hare management. Katie Hunter reports.
Mountain hares are secretive animals scattered across Scottish moorlands. Their management is controversial. This footage obtained by BBC Scotland shows a convoy carrying out a cull in the Cairngorms area last month. This is legal, and land managers say it helps prevent the hares overgrazing and spreading disease to grouse. But animal rights charities say it's unnecessary, large-scale culling.
A dozen or so armed men moving around the hills in convoys, taking out the hares as they go and filling up the pickup trucks. So, I mean, how much larger can you get? And I don't think anybody can argue that this is restraint. It looks like they're at war with the hares.
In one part of the footage, a hare appears to be shot, but not killed. The activists who filmed this say the same injured hare is later picked up by a dog. We showed the footage to Scottish Land and Estates, which represents landowners. The director says it's unusual and unfortunate when a hare isn't killed outright, but denies this is large-scale culling.
We have nothing to hide on this. This is a management operation, and that is how it has to happen. There's really no other way of doing it, and shooting is the most efficient and the most effective and the most humane way of controlling numbers of mountain hares.
New footage of the sickening slaughter of mountain hares is reported by the BBC today.
The issue was raised by Green MSP Alison Johnston in First Minister's questions, prompting this response from Nicola Sturgeon.
The government is exploring all available options to prevent mass culls of mountain hares, and one of those options, of course, is legislation and a licensing scheme. What we are seeing is not acceptable, and that is a very clear message that goes from the government today.
Moorland representatives say the film gives an incorrect impression about mountain hare management. Animal rights activists want a ban and say the footage strengthens their case. Katie Hunter, reporting Scotland.
The most senior executive in the NHS in Scotland has said members of Tayside Health Board were misled over the state of its finances. Paul Gray was giving evidence to MSPs following a highly critical independent review. It concluded that the board had misrepresented its financial position. The board's director of finance was suspended and has now retired. His chief executive and chairman both told the committee they were disappointed at the situation. NHS Tayside has received £40 million from the government to plug its financial gaps. The Scottish Government has set out plans to tackle child poverty. A new income supplement will be available for families in greatest need. Funding's also being targeted at helping parents into work, part of a £50 million investment over the next 4 years. The Hunter Foundation is contributing £2.5 million. Along with £5 million from the Scottish Government, it'll fund projects that are showing success in reducing child poverty.
We believe this is going to happen at community level. People are just getting on with solutions. They're not waiting for government or local authority, and we want to find them projects that are working, from the smallest to some of the big ones, and then give a hand up, not a handout.
You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's just about a minute after 6:45. A reminder of tonight's top story. The Prime Minister says Scotland can have a bright future after Brexit, but Nicola Sturgeon insists that leaving the EU will be hugely damaging. And still to come, we meet Scotland's oldest man as he celebrates his 110th birthday. Survivors of the Hillsborough disaster will visit Celtic Park this weekend to see how the club implements its safe standing policy. 96 Liverpool supporters were killed in the stands 29 years ago. In its aftermath, all-seater stadiums became a legal requirement in England. But now some supporters want that changed. More from David Curry.
Celtic Park is the only stadium in Scotland or England where football fans can watch a top-flight match standing up. Most of the ground's 60,000 capacity is taken up by seating, but for the past couple of seasons, about 3,000 home fans have been able to watch their team from a safe standing area.
Certainly for Celtic and for us, and being on the side watching it, does it create a greater ambience? Does it create a greater atmosphere? Does it help to do that? Then 100% yes. I know as well as anyone the sensitivity around it, and that's why I say it may not be for every club.
After the Hillsborough disaster, in which 96 Liverpool fans died, standing sections were banned in the English Premier League and Championship. But now some fans groups are pressing for that ban to be relaxed. And this weekend, a number of Hillsborough disaster survivors will be here with Liverpool fans to watch Celtic play Ross County from the safe standing area.
For us, if it is going to be introduced,
You know, we want to make sure that all those who've got concerns or questions about its safety are heard. You know, if there's any lesson from Hillsborough, it should be that, you know, those people who've experienced the worst pain should at least have their questions answered, even if it's, you know, something very basic.
Some other Scottish clubs are considering the introduction of safe standing areas, but it would require a change in the law for that to happen in England's top leagues. David Curry, reporting Scotland, Celtic Park, Glasgow.
Andy Murray will make his comeback after hip surgery in June. The former world #1 will play at the Libima Open in the Netherlands. It'll be the first competitive test of his fitness since his operation in January and part of his preparations for Wimbledon this summer. An exhibition celebrating Charles Rennie Mackintosh will open this weekend. The show in Kelvingrove Art Gallery and Museum in Glasgow is part of a year of celebrations marking the 150th anniversary of the birth of the artist, architect and designer. Our arts correspondent Polly McLean reports.
For Charles Rennie Mackintosh, detail was everything, from the tiniest part of the biggest project. This new exhibition, the biggest in decades, shows how he and his contemporaries led the way in every single aspect of their design.
He and his contemporaries were all polymaths. They worked across a wide range of materials because that was their training and discipline. And the aim of this exhibition is to get people really excited to understand the breadth of work, the breadth of creativity. And I want people to go out and make afterwards, you know, and think they can do it.
Mackintosh's designs were the backdrop to everyday life for many Scots, not least in the tea rooms of Glasgow in the early 1900s. This panel was salvaged from the Ingram Street tea rooms in 1971.
These two panels we have, that we have them, is really down to one individual who worked for the Hunterian at the time and who basically recognized how important these wall parts are. And from what I understand, speaking to him, he spoke to a conservator at that time in Edinburgh who was a conservator of wall paintings, who over the phone talked him through how to protect the wall parts and how to actually take out the entire wall fragments to save the panels.
After months of painstaking restoration, one of the panels is now back on public display, in time for the opening of this new exhibition. Polly McLean, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Scotland's oldest man has been celebrating his 110th birthday. Alf Smith from Perthshire shares the title of Britain's oldest man with a pensioner in the south of England who was also born on this day in 1908. Our reporter Andrew Anderson has been to meet him.
Well, Alf, it's lovely to meet you. My name's Andrew.
Yeah.
And it's my birthday today as well.
It is.
It is. I'm 56, so I've got a wee bit of catching up to do.
Yeah.
Alf Smith at the home near Perth, which he shares with his daughter Irene. A farmer nearly all his days, he thinks that's maybe helped him reach his 110th birthday.
Well, it could be. It could be. I've had to work all my life. Manual labour, you know.
In the year Alf was born, the first aeroplanes were taking to the skies. But it's on the farm that Alf says he's seen the biggest changes.
Change from animals to tractors and farms. There are no horses on farms now. They're just a tractor. A tractor and one man.
Amongst all the cards that Alf's received is this one from Bob Waiton down in Hampshire. Bob was also born on this very day 110 years ago, but neither he or Alf know quite which one of them was born first. Today a civic visit to mark a special birthday.
So you keeping all right?
And like me, Alf's visitors wanted to know his secret.
Porridge, of course.
Well, I had my porridge today as well.
Course. Yeah, I like my porridge every day.
110, it's a special birthday, so...
And tonight, maybe a wee dram as well. Andrew Anderson, reporting Scotland, St Meadows, Perthshire.
Well, happy birthday, Alf, from all of us at Reporting Scotland. Timeline is over on BBC Two at 7:30 tonight. Shireen and Fiona can tell us what's coming up.
Tonight, as another rural village sets up its own broadband network, can this model work for others?
We speak to the journalist who had an eating disorder while working as a food writer.
The 4-foot wildcat caught on camera. We hear from the man who captured these pictures.
And Still Game star Greg Hempel will be here to tell us about his new ghost-hunting black comedy.
Are you a fan of the show?
That's Timeline at 7:30, BBC Two Scotland.
In the meantime, let's see what we can expect from the Easter weekend weather, Chris.
Sally, thank you. Hello there. Well, some lovely spells of sunshine for many of us today, but over the next few days, probably fairly cloudy fare. Here's the pressure sequence, and you can see low pressure nearby, but most of the weather fronts, most of the rain to the south of us. We've got an east or northeasterly, so quite a cool few days coming up, and there will be a number of showers, then rain coming our way late on Monday. So, tonight, well, reasonably dry for many, but there will be some areas of cloud across parts of the far north and northeast, feeding in showers. These falling as snow on the hills and high ground. There is a Met Office yellow be aware warning for that. Some outbreaks of rain in towards the borders. So, tomorrow, a reasonably dry start for central and western Scotland, but fairly cloudy. We still have that feed of showers across the far north and northeast, again, falling as snow on the highest hills and highest road routes, perhaps some rain in towards the borders at times. And the best of the sunshine, as I say, towards the west coast, the Hebrides and indeed the Northern Isles. A fairly brisk easterly wind, so across eastern Scotland it's going to feel quite chilly, but in the west, given some sunshine, anything up to around 7 or 8 Celsius. A few passing showers at times, but most of them really focused towards the east and northeast. And whilst it will be a cloudy afternoon, the cloud will thin and break at times to reveal some brightness, but the best of the sunshine up towards the northwest, the far north, Orkney and Shetland. You can see the snow showers there across Grampian, and the temperatures around about 4 or 5 Celsius across the north and east, but warmer further west. The rest of the afternoon into the evening, well, little in the way of change. We hold on to that easterly flow feeding in cloud, and for the first half of the weekend, well, low pressure still nearby, but weather fronts staying to the south of us, so reasonably dry, albeit with a few showers at times. So here's Saturday, fairly cloudy for central and eastern Scotland with a number of showers, again wintry on the hills and high ground. The best of the sunshine towards the west, in the sun up to around 8 degrees. Come Easter Day, Sunday, well, reasonably dry, but the wind's coming in from the north, and that means it will feel rather chilly across parts of the far north and the Northern Isles. That's the forecast for now.
Thanks so much, Chris. Now, a reminder of tonight's main news. With 1 year to go, the Prime Minister says Scotland can have a bright future after Brexit. She dismissed accusations of a power grab in the row over EU powers in devolved areas like farming and fishing. But at Holyrood, the First Minister said Brexit would be hugely damaging. Doctors say Yulia Skripal, the daughter of the former Russian spy who was poisoned with a military-grade nerve agent, is no longer dangerously ill and is improving rapidly. Her father remains in a critical but stable condition. Meanwhile, police have revealed that the nerve agent appears to have been placed on the front door of his home in Salisbury. And that's Reporting Scotland. If you haven't had quite enough of us, we're back again right now, actually, with a programme celebrating 50 years of Reporting Scotland. I'll see you after the 10 o'clock news. Bye for now.